Ethanol, more commonly known as alcohol, is the most popular recreational drug in the world. It's been widely used for millennia, and it provides depressant effects. There are many restrictions on alcohol around the globe, but adults tend to have legal access to it. The effects of a drug will vary for each user, so the most I can do is provide a general overview of the effects. The positive effects include relaxation, mood lift, euphoria, increased sociability, lower inhibition, reduced anxiety, and pain reduction. Among its negative effects are drowsiness, difficulty focusing your eyes, visual distortions that can be impairing, dehydration, decreased coordination, nausea, vomiting, lower emotional control, dizziness, confusion, memory loss, erectile dysfunction, and greater impulsive behavior. There are some very negative effects that appear well beyond a normal dose. Those include severe memory loss, known as a blackout, coma, and eventually death. Compared to other drugs, alcohol has particularly strong hangover effects, mainly when high doses are used. The hangover, which can be a sign of using too much, correlates well with heavy use. It can include headache, negative mood, thirst, nausea, dizziness, muscle fatigue, brain fog, and sweating. The causes of its hangover aren't fully known, but I'll explain some possibilities shortly. Orally, alcohol lasts for 1.5 to 3 hours. The onset is 15 to 30 minutes, and the strongest effects are present 30 to 90 minutes after administration. The hangover, if it's particularly bad, can exist for up to 36 hours. Usually though, it'll be present for 12 to 24 hours. Of the alcohols, ethanol is second only to methanol in its simplicity. It's produced by the fermentation of sugars. Alcohol's pharmacology remains a mystery in many ways. There are a ton of actions that have been identified, but it's difficult to figure out which ones provide its characteristic effects. It seems like some combination of positive GABA modulation, inhibition of NMDA channels, and inhibition of calcium channels is involved in alcohol's effect profile. There are some other actions, such as 5-HT3 agonism, activation of endogenous opioid systems, and modulation of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, which are either less important, unimportant, or we simply don't know their importance. On the pharmacokinetic side, part of the issue with alcohol is that it's metabolized to acetaldehyde, which is more dangerous and is connected with cancer, liver issues, and other problems. The causes of alcohol's hangover are still far from clear, but I think it's safe to say many of the effects come from ethanol itself, while other factors may influence the severity of the hangover. So, the hangover appears to be connected to an increase in inflammation, which is correlated with a rise in pro-inflammatory cytokines, dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, the production of acetaldehyde, and a form of immediate withdrawal, since it appears there are some fast-acting dependence-like actions from acute use. A couple other factors may affect hangover severity. Sleep quality is an obvious one. If you used a large amount at night, you may get to sleep fine, but the recovery effects of sleep will be infringed upon. Another is congeners, which are basically anything other than ethanol that's in your drink. This includes things like tannins, colorings, flavorings, methanol, and acetaldehyde. If congeners are important, then drinks like vodka or gin may be superior to beer or red wine. An interesting side note is that ethanol is regularly produced in very small amounts in the human body, and there's a rare condition called autobrewery syndrome, which results in there being intoxicating amounts of ethanol in the body. This can come from greater endogenous fermentation or from your body not breaking the ethanol down, resulting in accumulation. There's far too much history for me to go into with alcohol, so I'm going to focus on some of the highlights. The earliest use we know of appears to have been 9 to 10,000 years ago in China, based on jugs that date back to the Neolithic period. Unlike with other ancient drugs, alcohol has been used for a very long time in nearly every part of the world. Wine production dates back to at least 5,400 BCE in Iran, and there's evidence of alcohol use dating back 3 to 5,000 years in places like Egypt, Mexico, Syria, Sudan, Iraq, and India. In the 1st century BCE, wine was a normal part of Greek and Roman life. There's evidence of indigenous people in the Americas using a variety of alcohol drinks before Europeans arrived. The Aztecs, for example, used a drink called pulque, which was made from agave, and that use may date back to 200 CE. Distilled beverages became commonplace in Europe in the 1100s to 1300s. The 18th Amendment went into effect in the US in 1920, resulting in a significant increase in crime and a large illegal alcohol trade that lasted for around a decade. Prohibition ended in 1933. Since the late 1900s, ethanol as a fuel source has become more common, and it's either used by itself or mixed with gasoline. Alcohol is now the most widely used recreational drug, and there are large cultural practices built around it in many countries. Beverages usually contain 3 to 40% alcohol. Beer is 4 to 6%, wine is 12 to 15%, and distilled beverages, also known as spirits, contain 30 to 90% alcohol. Distilled beverages include drinks like vodka, gin, rum, whiskey, and tequila. The higher the alcohol by volume, known as the ABV, the less you need to drink. I'll give the dose by drinks, and one drink is either a 12-ounce bottle or can of 5% beer, a 5-ounce glass of 12% wine, or a 1.5-ounce shot of 40% distilled beverage. With that breakdown in mind, a light dose is 1 to 2 drinks, a common dose is 2 to 5 drinks, and a strong dose is 6 drinks or more. The dose will vary a lot depending on body weight, sex, time drinking, and other factors. As a general rule, you should be drinking less if you're a female or weigh less. For example, the doses I listed were for a 160-pound male, so a 120-pound female could use just 1 to 3 or 4 drinks for the same level of effects. Alcohol is usually legal, but with age restrictions on purchasing and production. The age requirement is normally 16 to 21 and sometimes higher. Depending on where you are, there may be no restriction on consumption. It may also vary by the type of alcohol being used, such as wine versus spirits. In the US, there are laws in all states mandating you must be 21 years old to purchase alcohol. There's no federal law on the consumption of alcohol by minors, so it's left up to parents in many jurisdictions, particularly when the use occurs in a private residence. It's also illegal to drive with a blood alcohol content over 0.08%, and that limit may be lower depending on age and jurisdiction. While alcohol is legal for at least much of the population in many countries, that doesn't apply to every country. In Muslim-led countries, it may either be illegal for everyone or effectively illegal for everyone due to bans on the use of alcohol by Muslims. This applies to countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and Yemen. It's also illegal in some parts of India, such as in Manipur and Nagaland. A moderate dose infrequently is unlikely to cause any harm, so it's not really a concern. Concerns do arise with acute high doses and significant chronic use. It's unwise to drink, particularly to the level of clear intoxication, daily or on most days. It's also dangerous to binge drink, whether that involves very heavy quick consumption or multi-day periods of high consumption. Chronic heavy use that's daily or near daily is connected with numerous health issues, including liver disease, cancer, stroke, pancreatitis, and damage to other parts of the body, including the brain. It's important to understand regular high dose use is where many of the concerns arise. An example of this is with coronary artery disease and stroke, both of which either don't increase or may even decrease in connection with moderate use. Moderate use is defined as an average of 2 drinks per day, though personally I think even that amount over a lifetime isn't a great idea. But the point that moderate use is much safer than heavy chronic use stands. There are a variety of psychological issues that have been connected to chronic alcohol use, including mania, depression, panic disorder, anxiety disorder, and suicide. Chronic use also appears to impair brain function, including memory and executive function. Dependence is a real concern with constant use. Tolerance develops within a few days, and withdrawal can not only be very uncomfortable, it can be deadly due to seizures. Withdrawal ranges from minor to moderate, which features anxiety, sleep trouble, and nausea, to severe, which can include issues like delirium, tremors, and agitation. Moving into the acute concerns, a 0.4% BAC is potentially lethal, and alcohol can easily be lethal by the time you reach 0.5% BAC. That's equivalent to around 6 times a normal dose. Unconsciousness is likely to take hold by 0.3 to 0.4 BAC, while moderate effects are found at 0.08, with some effects appearing even a bit before that. As long as you use a reasonable dose, death and unconsciousness aren't notable concerns. It's dangerous to combine alcohol with a significant portion of drugs, especially depressants. You should avoid mixing it with benzodiazepines, opioids, and other depressants. The same goes for dissociatives like ketamine. Stimulants can also be a problem because of excessive intoxication, and cocaine in particular can be a problem since using alcohol with it creates cocaethylene, a substance that appears to be more dangerous for the heart. Heart rate, blood pressure, and respiratory depression become a concern with either high doses of alcohol or moderate doses combined with other depressants. Combining alcohol with other depressants can also raise the chance of memory lapse and significant memory loss.